My rich uncle found out I was living in my car while working 2 jobs to pay for college, and my cousins were making fun of my Infront everyone. I'm writing this from the back seat of my 2002 Honda Civic. It's parked behind a 24-hour gym where I sometimes sneak in a quick shower between my 2 jobs and classes. I use one of those window covers that say "baby on board" so no one looks in. There's no baby. Just me, a 21-year-old full-time college student pulling double shifts to keep my GPA and sanity above water. I work mornings at a coffee shop and evenings washing dishes at a crappy steakhouse. On weekends, I do lift just to scrape enough together for tuition and food. I eat a lot of rice and beans. I keep my clothes folded in the trunk, my laptop tucked under the passenger seat, and I've got a stash of granola bars hidden in the glove box for when dinner is a maybe. I haven't told most of my family about my living situation because, well, pride mostly. And also shame. My parents split when I was 12 and left me ping-ponging between them until I just stopped going back. My dad is barely around. My mom remarried a guy who hates that I exist. So, I took out student loans, picked up 2 jobs, and figured I'd survive. Barely maybe, but still. But a few weeks ago, everything kinda blew up. It was my cousin Jake's birthday. He's one of those kids who gets a car at 16, wrecks it, and gets another one the next week. My Uncle Rob, Jake's dad, is loaded. Big-time real estate investor, lives in a gated community, drives a Benz, brags about owning 5 rental properties. We were at some restaurant his company rented out for the party. I was only there 'cause my aunt guilted me into coming. I showed up late, still wearing my coffee shop uniform. I hadn't showered and I just finished a 10-hour shift. I grabbed a plate of food and tried to keep my head down. That's when it happened. Jake was showing off his new Rolex, for his 18th birthday. His younger brother, Nate, snickered and pointed at me. "Hey, didn't you say cousin Alex lives in his car now?" he said. Real loud. Like he wanted the whole table to hear. I froze mid-bite. It felt like every pair of eyes turned on me. Jake grinned and said, "Dude, are you serious? You shower at, like, Planet Fitness or something?" I wanted to disappear. I didn't even know they knew. My guess? One of them saw me parked outside the gym late at night. Or maybe it got around through my mom's side of the family. Doesn't matter. The damage was done. People laughed. Not everyone, but enough. I just said, "Yeah, I do," and tried to eat through the burn in my throat. Uncle Rob finally chimed in. "Alex, come on, man. What are you doing with your life? You should have asked for help if you were that desperate. Sleeping in your car is just, I don't know, irresponsible." He said that while sipping a $300 bottle of wine. I just sat there, numb. Because that's the thing, he knew. He knew I was grinding it out. I had told him 2 years ago that I wanted to go to college without debt, that I was hustling, working. I even asked him once if he had any work I could do for him. He never replied. But now, in front of all these people, suddenly I'm the irresponsible one? What hurt the most wasn't the words. It was the tone. Like I was a disappointment. Like I was less. Jake added, "I mean, bro, if you needed money, you could have just mowed our lawn or something." Everyone laughed again. I left early. I sat in my car behind the gym and cried for the first time in months. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried because it felt like I was trying so hard to keep my dignity while people who'd been handed everything since birth laughed at me like I was a joke. I almost dropped out that night. But here's the thing, I didn't. The next morning, I dragged myself out of the Civic, changed shirts, and went to work. I told myself I'd make it out of this. That maybe one day I'd be the one renting out restaurants, not to flex, but just to remind myself I made it out. What I didn't know then was that life had one more twist waiting. After the birthday party, things got weird. I stopped answering calls from that side of the family. I didn't block them or anything, I just let the messages sit unread. Aunt Jenna texted me saying, "They didn't mean it like that, Alex. Boys will be boys." As if being humiliated in front of 30 people was a rite of passage or something. I didn't respond. I'd hit a kind of emotional rock bottom. Not the dramatic kind where you start drinking or spiraling, just the quiet kind. The kind where every day feels heavier. I started sleeping less. Eating less. The coffee shop manager noticed. One night after closing, she offered me leftover pastries and said, "You good, kid?" I lied and said I was just tired from midterms. That week, it rained 4 nights straight. My car roof leaks. I had to wrap my backpack in a trash bag and sleep sitting up so the water wouldn't drip on my face. My clothes started smelling damp. I knew people were starting to notice. Even my regulars at the shop stopped making small talk. Then came the worst day. I had just gotten off my dishwashing job. It was after 1 a.m. and freezing cold. I stopped at a gas station to microwave some instant noodles and sat in my car eating them with a plastic fork, watching some TikTok on my cracked phone, trying to feel normal for 5 minutes. Out of nowhere, Jake FaceTimed me. I don't know why I answered. He was at some party. Loud music, drunk girls, flashing lights. He flipped the camera and pointed it at his new custom gaming setup and said, "Yo, Alex, thought I'd show you what a real college experience looks like. Maybe if you weren't living like a bum, you could afford something like this." He was laughing. Actually laughing. I ended the call and threw my phone into the passenger seat. I didn't cry this time. I didn't shout. I just sat there. Hands clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. Something inside me flipped. Not rage exactly, but something deeper. Like my soul had just stood up and said, no more. I drove to campus and parked outside the library. Slept 2 hours. At 6 a.m. I walked straight to the financial aid office. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't care. I walked up to the counter, eyes puffy, hoodie soaked, and said, "I'm going to drop out unless someone can tell me if there's anything I can apply for. Anything at all." The woman looked at me for a long second like she wasn't sure if I was serious or maybe just another broke student whining about tuition. But then she got up, said, "Hold on." She came back with a short lady in a red cardigan and introduced her as Ms. Carter, one of the directors. Ms. Carter took me into her office, closed the door, and let me talk. I told her everything, my living situation, the jobs, the night shifts, the family stuff. All of it. Even the Jake shit. For the first time, I said it out loud without choking it back. She listened. Really listened. When I was done, she said, "You should have come sooner. Let's see what we can do." That moment changed my life. Turns out the university had an emergency fund for students in housing crisis. Within 48 hours, they got me into a temporary student dorm, just one room with a bed, desk, and radiator. To me, it felt like the Hilton. I had heat, a bathroom, a real goddamn pillow. But it didn't stop there. Miss Carter helped me apply for a merit and need-based scholarship that had just reopened because someone else dropped out mid-semester. I had a decent GPA despite everything, and within a week, they approved it. It covered tuition and gave me a monthly stipend for food and rent. I didn't tell anyone right away. I wanted to sit in it for a bit, just for me. I'd survived the lowest point of my life, and somehow I was still standing. Still studying. Still dreaming. And then came the real twist. One of my professors, who I guess heard about my situation through the school, pulled me aside after class and said, "There's a tech internship opening at my brother's company. Paid. Flexible hours. Want me to put in a word?" I said yes. Obviously. A week later, I started working there part-time, making more money in a day than I used to make in 3. I quit the dishwashing job. Kept the coffee shop for the free caffeine and because it felt like home. I didn't tell Jake or Uncle Rob anything. But word got out eventually. Someone must have seen me on LinkedIn or maybe through mutuals. Because last week, Jake DM'd me, "Yo, you still mad about that party? Let's catch up sometime. I might be applying at that internship place too. Can you vouch for me?" I didn't even reply. I just screenshotted it and sent it to my friend with the caption, "Life comes at you fast." So I was finally living indoors again. The dorm wasn't glamorous. It was this oldest building that smelled like burnt toast and cheap carpet glue, but it was mine. No more waking up in a fogged-up Civic to the sound of garbage trucks or early gym-goers giving me the side-eye. No more pretending I was just between leases. I started sleeping better. I got a full 8 hours for the first time in like 8 months. My grades improved. I had time to eat meals that weren't warmed up by gas station microwaves. I even bought a goddamn pillow with actual neck support. Then came the university's Student Resilience and Perseverance panel. They hosted it every spring, this event where students shared stories about overcoming hardship. Ms. Carter asked if I'd consider speaking. First, I laughed. Me? Talk in front of people? The guy who used to cry himself to sleep in a parking lot? But then I thought about all the nights I sat in my car wondering if any of this was worth it. So I said yes. The auditorium wasn't huge. Maybe 200 people. Mostly students, some faculty. They gave me 10 minutes. I got up there in a secondhand blazer and just told the truth. I told them about sleeping in my Civic, hiding my clothes in my trunk, working 2 jobs and eating whatever was under $2 at the gas station. I told them about my uncle and my cousins laughing at me. I didn't name drop, but I didn't hold back either. I ended it like this. Some people are born into safety nets. Others have to sew their own out of duct tape and grit. I used to think living in a car meant I was failing. But the truth is, it meant I refused to give up. That's not failure. That's survival. And survival is its own kind of success. The room went quiet after. And then people stood. Like actually stood up. Couldn't believe it. Students came up after and hugged me. A professor told me he was going to share my speech with his freshman class. One girl cried and said she thought she was the only one couch surfing. I felt seen. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. A week later, my Aunt Jenna called me out of nowhere. I let it go to voicemail. She said she'd watched a recording of the panel that someone posted on Facebook. Then Uncle Rob called. I picked up out of curiosity. He started with, "Hey Alex, just wanted to say that speech you gave was powerful." There was this long pause. Then he said, "You should have told us how bad it was. I would have helped you out." I bit my tongue so hard I could taste blood. "You mean like when I asked you about part-time work 2 years ago, and you left me on read?" He didn't have much to say to that. Then came the kicker. "You know, your cousin Jake. He's been going through a tough time lately. Struggling with school. Lost some motivation. Maybe you two could reconnect. Maybe you could inspire him." Inspire him? The guy who mocked me for living in my car. The same one who thought being broke was something to laugh at? I kept it civil. Said I was busy. Hung up. But then something unexpected happened. Jake showed up at campus. Like, physically showed up. He found me outside the library, holding a Starbucks cup like it made him invisible. He tried to do that dumb smirk he always did when we were kids. "Yo, thought I'd stop by. Heard you gave a TED Talk or something," he joked. I stared at him. "What do you want, Jake?" He shuffled his feet. Looked weirdly nervous. I was a dick. I know. That party, that joke, wasn't funny. I thought I was being cool. But I was just being an asshole. "I'm sorry. Now here's the thing. I didn't forgive him. Not right away. Because I'm not that enlightened. I'm not a self-help book. But I said, thanks. Then I said, you should apologize to the version of me who cried himself to sleep in a freezing Civic that night. Not just the version standing here in clean clothes and a warm dorm." He nodded. Said he'd think about that. And you know what? That felt enough. I'm not friends with Jake. We're not grabbing beers or swapping memes. But that day, for once, I saw something new in his face. Respect. Maybe a little shame, too. And you know what? That was better than revenge. After that day outside the library, I didn't really hear much from Jake. No more texts. No surprise pop-ins. Just silence. And honestly, I liked it that way. I'd spent too much of my life trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I was less. That chapter was over. The weirdest part wasn't Jake, though. It was how quickly people started treating me differently. Professors who barely looked up from their laptops started asking how I was doing. My manager at the coffee shop offered to rearrange my schedule so I could focus more on classes and the internship. Even some of the students who used to roll their eyes when I wore the same hoodie 3 days in a row suddenly had questions about the scholarship program I'd applied to. It was like surviving made me shiny or something. But here's the thing nobody tells you: when life starts to get better, part of you doesn't trust it. Every time I lay down in my dorm bed, I braced myself to wake up in the Civic again. Every time I ate something warm and didn't have to microwave it in a gas station, I waited for someone to snatch it away. It took months before my shoulders stopped tensing every time my phone buzzed. Trauma doesn't leave quietly. Around mid-semester, I was invited to this networking event for first-gen college students. Free food, speakers, the usual. I didn't want to go at first, figured it'd be a room full of people pretending to have their lives together while I tried not to sweat through my thrifted button-down. But I went. And sitting there, listening to this 30-something tech exec talk about how he used to shovel snow for $5 a driveway to save up for a used laptop, something in me clicked. Not because we were the same, but because he didn't hide it. He didn't pretend he came from some polished world of prep schools and paid internships. He owned his grit like it was a damn trophy. And for the first time, I started to believe I could too. I made it my mission from that day on to stop apologizing for how I got here. Living in my car? That wasn't shameful. That was survival. Working 2 jobs? That wasn't desperation. That was discipline. Getting laughed at by spoiled brats in designer sneakers? That was a scene, not the whole movie. So I stopped ducking my head. I spoke up more in class. I posted my speech on LinkedIn with a short note. From backseat to boardroom. One day. For now, just grinding. The post blew up. Not viral level, but enough that a few recruiters reached out. I even had someone from a nonprofit ask if I'd consider mentoring high school seniors applying to college without family support. That one hit me. I said yes. The next week, I was sitting in a tiny classroom at a community center surrounded by kids who looked a lot like I used to, tired, quiet, half convinced the world didn't have room for them. I told them about sleeping in my car, about getting laughed at, about the night I almost gave up. And one kid, this tall, lanky kid with the saddest eyes, asked, "Do you ever wish you were born rich?" I thought about that for a long second. Then I said no. Because rich kids don't get to find out how strong they are. We do. The room went silent. That kid just stared at me like I'd handed him a sword. And in that moment I realized maybe this was the point. Not just surviving, but showing up for the version of me that had nobody to look up to. Because for every Jake, there's a kid out there waiting to hear, "You're not broken. You're just early." And yeah, I still have bad days. I still get overwhelmed. I still flinch when I pass by the Planet Fitness I used to sleep behind. But now I walk a little taller. Because I know exactly what it took to get here. And I'm not done yet. So, life's turning around, right? Dorm bed, warm meals, internship, a little money in my bank account, not a lot, but enough that I don't have to count quarters at the gas station. And still, guess who decided now was the perfect time to try and reestablish family bonds? Uncle Rob. He called again. I didn't answer, so he left a voicemail. "Hey, Alex, listen, your aunt and I have been talking and we feel bad about what happened at Jake's party. Maybe we weren't sensitive enough. We'd like to invite you to dinner. Just us. No kids. Talk things out. You ever hear someone apologize without actually saying, 'I'm sorry'? That was it. It wasn't guilt. It was image control." They'd seen the school post about my speech. Aunt Jenna commented, "So proud of you, sweetie," like she hadn't stood by while her kids mocked me. Like she wasn't the one who once told me I should just take a break from school and work full-time until things got better. I didn't respond. But life has a sick sense of humor because 2 days later I saw them in person. I was volunteering at this community event on campus, setting up tables for a food drive. It's part of a scholarship thing I'm in and I like doing it. Felt good to give back. Anyway, there I am stacking cans of soup when I hear that voice. "Alex?" I turn and there they are. Uncle Rob, Aunt Jenna, and Jake. Jake looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He was staring at his phone, pretending not to see me. I nod. "Hey." Uncle Rob walks up, arms wide like we're buddies. "We didn't know you'd be here. We're helping out with the alumni tent." Translation, schmoozing with other donors. I could have walked away. I should have. But something in me needed to say it. "Are you helping or just watching?" He laughs awkwardly. "Touché." Aunt Jenna puts a hand on my arm. "We've missed you at family things. Thanksgiving won't be the same without you." I stare at her for a second. Then I say, "Thanksgiving was the night I spent in my car with a gas station turkey sandwich and an empty phone battery. You never called." She blinked like that memory hadn't occurred to her at all. "We didn't know. You didn't ask." Then I turned to Jake. He looked up finally. No smirk this time. Just this blank, guilty expression. "You good?" I asked him. He shrugged. "Trying." I nodded. That's all I needed. They left after that. I finished setting up tables, but my hands were shaking. Not from anger. From release. Like I finally laid something down I'd been carrying too long. That night, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my dad. "Hey, heard about your speech. I'm proud of you. Maybe we could grab lunch sometime." I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't seen the man since I was 17. He'd always been distant, more of a ghost with a voice than a parent. And now he wanted lunch? I didn't reply. Because here's the truth I've learned, not everyone who shares your blood deserves access to your peace. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. And sometimes protecting yourself means walking away from the people who swore they loved you but disappeared when it got inconvenient. That doesn't mean I'm bitter. It just means I'm free. Free to focus on my future. Free to build a life that doesn't come with conditions or condescension. Free to make a name for myself that isn't preceded by Rob's nephew or the poor cousin. I'm not who I was in that car. I'm not who I was at that party. I'm something else now. Something stronger. And I owe that version of myself, the one who clutched a blanket in the cold and whispered just one more week, everything. He kept going. So now? So will I.